What's the crack? We're back once again talking absolute pony in the car. Hopefully you've all been keeping well since the last one. I had said when I start making these they'd be fairly sporadic. It could be weeks between them, it could be days. It just depends on when the opportunity arises and when I have something I want to talk about. So this topic it's something that kind of comes up semi-regularly during like check-ins and chatting to my lifters or seeing other people post online about what's going on in powerlifting and just the scope they think in, right? So essentially the main title is going to be, and I'm sure you've seen if I've uploaded it with this title, is you're not thinking long term, all right? So what does that mean? So we have just had the February Open, which I'll probably do a video on actually. And the February Open was the last competition where juniors and sub-juniors could qualify for this year's sub and junior nationals. So it means this was the last time they could register totals to go towards qualifying for that meet. So junior nationals, sub-junior nationals, I'm just going to call it junior nationals, is towards the end of April, all right? So what does that mean? Many of the lifters that compete as a junior tend to get really consumed with this time period and competing against their peers. Now, I do understand the draw and the appeal of competing against your cohort, people that go to the same college or secondary school as you, or just knowing you're competing against other people in your age group. It's fun for them, right? I get that. But so often you'll see this all or nothing mentality on their ability to either qualify for junior nationals in the first place when they're like 18 or 19 years old and they've only been lifting a year or two, and everything hinging on doing well in this period of time in their junior career. Now, that's not to say you can't make excellent progress by focusing on having a really productive junior career. However, I think it becomes similar to how people can get really over-identified at weight classes. People can get really over-identified with being a junior. I'm a junior under 57, blah, 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 bullshit. This stuff doesn't matter. Like, if your plan is to be in powerlifting long-term enough, what age bracket you lift in is kind of irrelevant. Essentially, having sub-juniors and junior brackets is to give you a lower entry point. So like sub-juniors don't even have to hit a qualifying total. It's a minimum GLP and it's quite low. Same for the junior nationals qualifying totals. The minimum qualifying totals are extremely low in comparison to, say, the Open. And the Open is a much broader spectrum. It's essentially from 24 to 39. And there's no gap on when you can compete in the Open. So if you're a junior and you qualify for Open Nationals, you could compete at Open Nationals. If you're an M1, M2, M3 lifter who meets the qualifying standards for Open, you can compete there still. I do have thoughts on that. I don't know if I'm pro that necessarily, but it's just the way it stands now. Essentially, anyone that meets the very high standards for the Open Nationals can compete there. So with that in mind, is it productive to be overly focused on just your time as a junior and also the people you're competing against right now? And this goes beyond just junior lifting. That's just kind of the catalyst for the conversation to kind of give you the time frame I'm talking about. I see this all the time, the victimhood of comparison, and it seems so bizarre because powerlifting, it's really profound, where people are looking at the weight class and who is the best in the weight class and saying, why am I not as good as them after you're training? It's like, well, one, why are you comparing yourself to the best in your locale? That's nonsensical. It's like joining a company and being like, why am I not making as much as the CEO? I started working here a year ago. It's ridiculous. A lot of these things are contingent on more than just how hard you're training. And frankly, a lot of it goes into stuff people don't really like to have to look at. So you could get everything right. You could do all your training to the correct intensity. You could be putting your all into your nutrition, your stress management, your sleep, all these externals that are in your control. And you still might not be good enough to beat the top person. Maybe not even podium. That's just the nature of genetic inclination. That's not to say genetics are the biggest driver of all, but if you have somebody with brilliant genetics who's a hyper responder to strength training, and they also have all those things boxed off, they're going to be almost impossible to beat. Whereas if you've somebody who's excellent genetics who isn't doing all the externals and you are, it's a much closer margin. But there's just going to be people who have a natural inclination towards being excellent at strength sports and some people that just aren't. That doesn't mean you shouldn't do it, because this is kind of the point, right? If I were to say to you, you have no chance of ever making it to nationals, no matter how hard you work. Not that I would ever say that to anybody, but if I were to say that, if that would be to you, well, then I'm just going to stop training, or I'm going to stop doing powerlifting. You have fundamentally missed the point of participation in the sport, all right? Or in anything. Powerlifting is a catalyst and a structure for your training that the more time you invest, the more results you will see, though they won't be as linearly progressive as they are in your first little while. But the point is that powerlifting is a structure for long-term health, long-term performance, the ability to maintain healthy muscle mass and bone density into your advanced years. And I know that doesn't sound sexy or fun, but the reason it works is because this structure can go along with anything else, whether that's cardiovascular training, muscle building, fat loss, strength gain, whatever. Obviously strength gain. But powerlifting is complementary to all of these things. And then if you're someone who's in powerlifting and competes, the ability to keep showing up every 3 to 4 to 6 months and beating your old total, or at least maintaining your total, is an excellent benchmark for your own personal improvement, which is what is most important. There's other residual things I like powerlifting for. I may have even mentioned in other videos like this, but I don't fucking remember because I literally record and forget about what I talked about. But like, say for example, you're in the 76 kilo weight class and you'd like to cut down. Cutting down to the under 69 kilo weight class can be a great motivator to say, I want to compete at a lower body weight and do my best to maintain my current total. So you're lighter, leaner, and still just as strong, or, you know, by the metric, you're technically stronger. These are all great goals that have absolutely nothing to do with getting to nationals. And even at that, let's just say, like that, you're somebody who's good enough and puts in enough work and you make it to nationals. Just getting to nationals is already an achievement in and of itself, let alone getting on the podium. Podiuming at nationals means that you've, through some means or whatever, managed to beat out so many other lifters in your country. So, like, it can be one of these things. If somebody says, oh yeah, I was at nationals, but I came last. It's like, no, you were last in terms of the list of the very small number of people who have qualified or earned a spot at nationals, in comparison to the dozens, if not over 100 people who just didn't meet the standard, you know. I'm sorry, I'm just watching somebody try and park here in front of me. This car park, I'm going to sidetrack here. It's at my local gym, which is where I do most of these things, and it says everywhere, please reverse park, because obviously it's easier for people. If you're not a driver, this will make no sense. When you reverse park, right, you spend maybe an extra 30 seconds to a minute parking, but you're able to pull out and leave much easier. Whereas when you forward park, you then have to try and reverse out, and there's a lot of like little kids and all that come around here, so I guess that's why they want you to reverse park. But oh my god, the amount of people that drive these monstrous family wagons around here that just can't park for shit and can't reverse park to save their lives is crazy to me. Like, this person is like, he's a little old dude and he's just after parking all arseways and he's forward parked. So it's going to be a melt for him now to try and reverse out there because there's a big curb right beside his wheel and I bet he's going to go over it. Anyway, just random observations of what's going on around me. So if you were to even make it to nationals, you've already beaten out dozens, if not over 100 other people who would have liked to have been at that level. So that in and of itself is an achievement. And then beyond that, if you talk about getting a cap, so, you know, getting to represent Ireland, be it at, you know, a smaller international like Western Euros, up to, you know, IPF Worlds, you know, Open Worlds. Yeah, that's like the A tier. I know like now there's like Sheffield and things like that. Like, that's a little bit of a different thing. Like, the standards are, I actually had seen that. Somebody said to me recently, I noticed this person competing at Sheffield was still doing this type of training like a week out. How does that make sense? It's like, motherfucker, they're training for Sheffield. It's so far beyond what you're doing. You don't need to worry. You don't need to look at what the top lifters are doing and saying, why am I not doing that? Motherfucker, you're powerlifting 18 months. Now, the person that probably said this is going to watch this and be like, oh, that was me. I actually can't remember who said it. I just know somebody pointed it out, and I think we were spitballing back and forth about it. But that's it. I'm just using that as an example. You can look at what top lifters are doing, and it doesn't mean it's anything to do with what you're doing. Like, you'll see some people using like velocity trackers and all that. You don't need all this shit. It's not going to make you a better lifter. The things that will make you a better lifter are focusing on what you can do today that will add results later on. So that means not worrying about your diet and stress and sleep 8 weeks out from your goddamn meet. It's about worrying about it as much year round as you possibly can. If you're somebody that wants to lift at the top of your athletic endeavor, you need to act like an athlete more than just when it suits you. And yeah, that might be a bit boring for some people, and that's okay. Frankly, being good at a sport is going to mean your life is a lot more boring than if you didn't care about being good at the sport. And that's not to say there aren't exceptions, but by and large, it will mean limiting the amount of times that you go out in a month. You're probably not going to be able to go out and drink more than maybe once a month. And even if you do, it's going to have to be like a little bit sensible. You're not going to be able to go absolutely apeshit. You're going to have to watch your nutrition and your diet, your protein and fiber intake, your water intake, your stress management, your sleep quality has to be excellent. All these things are going to have to be done before you even get to the gym. In the gym, you're going to have to train in a sensible manner that adds to your overall output. So, for example, listening to your coaching cues and feedback, actually trying to implement them, stop obsessing about weight on the bar. So this is something I'll see, like not as often anymore, but particularly when I'd started online coaching, I would give people a cue and they wouldn't want to implement it because it meant taking weight off the bar. The weight you're lifting in training is inconsequential if it doesn't lead to a better outcome down the road. So what does that mean? If you're, let's say, doing pause deadlifts, all right, and the goal of the pause deadlift is to improve your position off the floor, if you're not able to adequately pause that weight to the standard we're looking for at, whatever, let's just say your fucking max deadlift is 140 and you're trying to do them at 125 and you're dog shit, take 10 kilos off and do it again. Over the course of the block, you'll likely reinforce good position and add the weight back on anyway. But the point is to get the position first, get the goal of the variation first, and then add on to it. Now, I know you can always make arguments about loading and you don't want to be underdosed on loading. Of course not. But again, you're probably going to be doing your main work elsewhere. And I'm not talking about taking it down to 40 or 50% of what you would normally do. I'm talking about taking a couple of kilos off till the standards hit. And I think that will usually lead to a better outcome for you if that's the goal. But again, you get people obsessing on linear progression across week to week across a block. You'll get people obsessed about, this is my 5RM, my 4RM, my paused fucking 2 count paused close grip Larsen press. These things don't matter. What matters is you're training to an appropriate intensity for where you are now. Every week is going to be a little different. Every month can be a little different. When you have momentum built and you see that you're popping off, yeah, push those loads. But like when you've got a lot of shit going on externally and shit feels heavy and you don't know that you can push the top set the way you had previously without failing, well then peel it back. Because again, all of this comes from the one resource, which is your ability to produce force, your ability to output. And rather than worrying about what you're doing week to week, day to day, session to session, or comp to comp, think long term. Where do I want to be? Not just in 6 months to a year, but 18 months to 2 years. If you're somebody, let's say right now, you're in your early 30s, you're lifting in the open, you're like 80 to 100 kilos or so off the qualifying total. Your goal right now should just be adding progressively to your total meet to meet, and ideally getting yourself to a standard where you could qualify for nationals. Not placing an arbitrary goal on yourself like, I have to qualify for nationals this year, or I'm quitting powerlifting, and think like, how long do I have left in this time period? Particularly if you're in the open, you've so much runway. Juniors probably feel a bit more stressed because the junior career only has X amount of time in it. But again, you have to think, where do I want to be? Am I still going to be powerlifting in 10 years? And if the answer is yes, then it won't really matter, one, if you ever make junior nationals, two, if you do make junior nationals, where you place. But the most important thing is, continue to train with intent, continue to manage all the externals that can add up to better training. And these results will likely come themselves. The last thing I want to say about thinking long term, and I'll try not to because it's going to probably go on just past 15 minutes, is don't worry about the identity you have for yourself today. Think more so, what's going to get me the result I want down the road. So I see very often people sandbag themselves with weight classes. I am an under 63 kilo lifter. I'm an under 93 kilo lifter. I'm an under 57 kilo lifter, because that's where they think they're going to be more competitive. Because the worry is that, what if I go up and the total is even higher that I have to hit? Most people will report, just by gaining that little bit more mass or just not cutting into meets, they're reporting that they're able to push loads that they never thought they could before. I have a prime example of this with a lifter of mine named Sarah McLaughlin. Sarah went from being under 69 to under 76. And she PB'd her total, I believe, by 15 kilos at her most recent meet in August. And on an RP 6 or 7 day. It was incredibly easy. Her next meet's Junior Nationals, which she got an invite to, which is a massive achievement. And I actually think you're going to see her pushing 400 plus there because of how well things are going. Now, she does have a lot of external bits and pieces to manage with work in college, and she travels up and down the country as well. But I think all going well, Sarah will have an amazing day. And that's because she's moved away from the idea of having to be committed to a given weight class and embrace that maybe I'm at my strongest here, and this is where I'm at my most competitive. That doesn't mean post-comp we couldn't look at, like, if she wanted to bring her body weight back down or get a bit leaner for the summer, you can do these things. But the thing is actually I want to do the best I possibly can in the competition I am putting all this time and effort and money and resources into, so this is what I need to do. Anyway, this has gone on a bit long, so I'm gonna stop talking now. Actually, you know what, while I'm sitting here, I'm sipping away on my Monster before the gym. Let me see what time it is. I'm gonna fucking do the February Open as well, so you get 2 of these in the next couple of days. Peace.